Thank you for tuning in to watch our Invest Philadelphia 2024 launch conference. You're about to watch panel number 2, Fresh Stance, a look into organizational strategies. Enjoy.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. This is our second panel, and I'm really excited to have you all here. What I'll ask is the first opening question and also ask each of you to just introduce yourself and the company. So opening up, given the constant shifts in demand and technology we see driving the change in our lives, it's becoming increasingly important to spend more time strategizing and planning as a company or organization. Would you agree? And if so, why? And how are you implementing more planning and strategy? Mike, I'll start with you.
Okay. I am Mike Rombach. I'm the general manager of NRG in the East, and specifically work with our residential group. So I mainly serve individual homeowners and residents rather than commercial industrial. Can you just repeat quickly what?
Of course. So companies it's becoming increasingly more important to spend more time strategizing and planning as a company or organization. Would you agree? And if so, why?
Yes, I definitely agree. We are in a space that, although it's been around for 125 years, the energy business, it is changing quickly of late, and I think that change will accelerate. And so we need to change with it and get ahead of that change, or we will become less relevant to the people we try to serve. I don't know that that's different than many industries, but it's certainly pronounced in ours.
Great. Thank you, Mike. Emily?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Emily Schapira. I'm the president and CEO of the Philadelphia Energy Authority. We're a quasi-governmental entity sitting in City Hall, working to build a robust and equitable clean energy economy in Philly. We almost 8 years ago, with the leadership of then Council President Darrell Clark, committed to invest $1 billion over 10 years in energy efficiency and clean energy in Philly to create 10,000 jobs. I'm really happy to share with you guys we're at about 905 million as of the end of 2023, so a couple years early, and about 7,600 jobs created. So this is an economy that's really booming in Philadelphia. Interestingly, I totally agree. Of course, like energy technology changes all the time. And there's been a huge move recently with involvement from the federal government and the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure law that are driving, billions and billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars of investment in climate related things. And so while I think it's critical for us to step back and do that strategic planning, I don't think it's happening as much as it needs to, if I'm being honest. This has been a year of like totally hair on fire as we try to apply for competitive grants at the federal government that are like brand new in how you do them. They're not sort of the usual old federal grant models. And then to really figure out how to collaborate across public and private, but not just that, also with nonprofit sectors, with community-based organizations, with universities, with even healthcare institutions getting involved in things that they previously sort of weren't. We're seeing, folks like CHOP and other healthcare institutions sort of diving into home interventions and home repair in a way, as they look at public health. So we definitely need to do more strategic planning. And I hope we can sort of start to have those conversations. I think real quick, one of the big drivers in our region is the award of a hydrogen hub. So that's something a lot of folks have been talking about. It doesn't mean a whole lot quite yet because there's still lots of phases to go through. But it gives us an opportunity through our hydrogen hub to really have that conversation about regional energy system planning and sort of being intentional about how we get to the next phase of climate adaptation and mitigation, and how that can really drive economic development in Philadelphia and the region.
Great. Thank you, Emily. And Sarajane?
Hi, I'm Sarajane Blair. I'm the general manager for CIC Labs and Innovation Campus. So we are an office, co-working, and lab space provider. We're located in 36 and Market Street. So I think I can sort of see this from two angles. So one, for CIC as a space provider over the last 3-4 years, we have had to do a lot of strategizing and pivoting. As everyone knows, the real estate market has been down, especially for workspace providers. And so how do we stay relevant and be flexible in letting folks come in use our space the way that they need to and keep them and help them regrow as folks are trying to get people back into the office place. So we've really been focusing on that and doing a lot of strategizing work. But also as a space provider, we have about 120 clients in our space right now. And we see when our clients don't spend the time, especially first founders, to get outside of the work they're doing and focus on the strategizing and planning, that they may have a really steep runway, but without taking the time to do that hard work, they often end up floundering and having to downsize or pivot in a way that they weren't expecting.
Great, thank you. Mike, I'm going to throw it back over to you. There's no surprise that people enjoy perks, and NRG Home has incorporated incentives like cash back, travel rewards, charitable contributions as part of its electricity or natural gas plans. How do these value adds help NRG stay competitive in the market, and how can other companies look to reevaluate their relationship with customers?
I think that you point out some of the programs that we have and that are highly valued and utilized in this area. And we do some of those things elsewhere as well, but there's always a local flavor to them. And I think we have to be humble enough to realize that that sort of innovation and those sorts of ideas that really appeal to people almost never come from the likes of me. They come from the people to whom you're trying to have a relationship and sell. And in most of the cases you pointed out, that has been true for us. So you have to figure out how to deliver the thing people expect, but to do it in a way relevant enough that they value it and they value it above what they're paying for. You have to create value for them. And in some of the instances, we really believe that in order to be capable of serving the good citizens of Philadelphia and Southeast PA, we need to be good citizens of Philadelphia. And we've been here a long time, and the relationship with CHOP that you mentioned, that is probably 12, 13 years old. It's been around a long time. We'll celebrate with them soon, having accumulated over $4 million for CHOP to use at their discretion. And that's not coming from us. That's coming from customers who have chosen to elect the option of paying 1% of their energy bill to CHOP. And we do that on their behalf. So the good ideas always come from the people you're serving. You just have to ask them often enough to know what they need. And I think that's an important part of remaining relevant in any community. And we work with CHOP, but we work with a lot of children's hospitals in many cities we serve for the very same reason. People at a local level want to do well and do good in the communities that they live in.
Great, thank you, Mike. Emily, in many ways, staying relevant can be tied to staying sustainable, which the Philadelphia Energy Authority has focused on through initiatives in clean energy and reduced carbon footprint. How has the Energy Authority helped Philadelphia stay relevant as a market leader in the energy space?
Thank you for this question, Ryan. I'm really excited to answer this one actually, because not to like pat myself on the back here, but we like had a little foresight for once. And 2.5 years ago, we started a green bank called the Philadelphia Green Capital Corp that serves Philadelphia and the surrounding region. And we did it because we kind of saw the things that were coming ahead, which is that there was sort of federal momentum around funding and capitalizing green banks. There was likely to be some major climate funding out of the Biden administration. And so Philadelphia is actually in the perfect position to draw down tons of dollars. Our estimate is about $5 billion in federal climate funding from grants, rebates, and tax credits. And these are now tax credits that are available to nonprofits, to governments, to institutions, folks that don't normally pay taxes. You're able to still take advantage of these tax credits now through direct pay. So we set up a green bank, and 2 years later, we just learned a couple of weeks ago now that we won a significant amount of money. I think it'll end up being about $100 million coming into our green bank through a bunch of partners. The EPA announced these Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund awards, and we were part of 3 of the 8 winning awards that each of those won sort of billions of dollars. So we're really excited about that funding. We just found out on Monday, this has been a crazy week, that We are also the recipient of a Solar for All award. So literally the way that we won this is it had to be a state award. So we partnered with the Pennsylvania Energy Development Authority, which is going to be someday the state green bank in Pennsylvania. We're able to submit really the most competitive, super amazing application because we have 7 years of running Solarize Philly under our belt. And so sort of to answer your question, and Solarize Philly, by the way, is the largest program of its kind in the country. We've done over 3,000 residential rooftops. About half of those are low and moderate income folks. We have a commercial program now. But to really sort of answer this question of like, how do you stay relevant? I think it does require, to Ryan's earlier point, a little bit of that strategic planning, a little bit of luck, obviously. But then also, really trying to think about, okay, what's right in front of me? And then what are going to be the next 10 steps that we need to make sure we're sort of planning for? And I think that happens in the smallest of ways and the biggest of ways. And you kind of have to think both macro and micro there.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I get to my closing question, Sarajane, in 2024, CIC will celebrate its 25th anniversary as a space that enables startups and entities of all shapes and sizes to connect and solve problems together. How has your team had to adapt to meet evolving needs?
Yeah, it's such a great question. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, being a workspace provider during the pandemic is not an easy space to be in. A lot of our centers have had a really slow upstart of having folks return. In Philadelphia, we were the only CIC location of 10 that did not close once during the pandemic. And that had to do primarily with the fact that we have labs. And Philadelphia, cell and gene therapy hub, the folks doing the work in the labs here couldn't stop. They couldn't go home. They couldn't continue doing their vaccine research at home. So CIC had to adapt, and CIC created another entity called CIC Health to really help monitor COVID testing and send it really across the US. But the fact that innovation is part of our founding, part of where the company came from, let the founder and the folks on the ground think in a different way about what we were doing and how we were going to stay open so that the scientists doing the good, hard work in our space could continue the work they were doing. So we've really been able to pivot based on needs and based on evolving markets. And I think that is one of the value adds and the pieces that make CIC a unique workspace provider.
Great, thank you. And my last question, I think we all know in 2026, all eyes will be on Philadelphia. There's so much going on for the city and the surrounding region, but to tie it back to the business community, your organizations and companies specifically, to sum it up, and again, you've hit on it throughout, but what would you say it means to stay or be relevant as a company or organization in 2024? Mike, I'll throw it over to you first.
I think that with all the exciting things happen regionally, we have to remember our responsibility in the business we're in of finding innovation and information and things that people and bringing it to this area. The good news is that Pennsylvania and Philadelphia specifically are better than average in terms of the competitive energy market, but I don't think that anyone has exactly got it dialed in. And Philadelphia is part of a big Commonwealth, and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is part of a big grid of 13 states, and local actions have a ripple effect that really impact people way beyond the immediate region. And the same is true in reverse. So there's some narrow-mindedness. It makes sense to all of us to say, let's do what's best for Philadelphia. But we can't say, even if it's not good for people across the river in New Jersey, right? We have to make it work regionally and beyond that. And that's a challenge because often cloaked in the disguise of protecting people, you disarm their ability to make good decisions on their own. You need to give people the ability to act in their own best interest and not assume that that's against my best interest. Those things are more aligned. So I think as all the excitement of the couple of years ahead come to fruition, we need to keep arming people in this community with the information and the tools and the innovation they need to be better consumers and stewards of the things that are important to the greater region.
I kind of love that. I feel like the motto of sort of going forward 2024 to 2026 is this idea of like radical collaboration and transparency. You know, we spent a lot of time with federal and state legislators telling them, you know, if you can do it in Philly, you can do it anywhere. And that's why you should invest federal dollars in Philly. We've been a model for so many things across the country. In energy, that's incredibly true. We have, you know, pioneered things here that have grown into whole programs across the country. And so, you know, I think we need to kind of like own it. Philly's not a town that's really great at owning it. We're such underdogs, you know? And so we've got so much going for us. And I think where we have challenges, they are the same challenges that everybody is facing. And often we have them in a way that is more stark and that is more in your face than other places, but that's because that's who we are. So, you know, I think we just have to totally own that and understand that, you know, the like kind of parochialism of Philadelphia that we've always had, the sort of Quaker Philadelphia, you know, is not something we have to overcome, but it is something we have to sort of admit and like work on together, because we're going to need all of us rowing in the same direction to get to that point where in 2026, when we're on the stage of the world and we're celebrating, you know, that our city sort of looks how we feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that both of you said, I really would echo. And also, I think for CIC and sort of for our company, one of the things that I think is really important is feeling confident about your base product line, what you are doing, what you are selling, but being open to innovate and being open to the community that you are trying to innovate for.
Great. Thank you all very much. If you could give a round of applause to our panelists.